You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And hey, welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yeh.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And on today's episode, we have an author chat for you with Tania to talk about her latest novel, The Matcha Maker Cafe, which she wrote under the pen name Lily Chen. As always, Books and Boba is supported in part by our listeners. So if you've been enjoying this podcast and want to become a bigger part of our book club, head on over to patreon.com/books and Boba, where as an official Patreon supporter, you gain access to our members-only Discord server, where you can chat with us and fellow book club members in real time about all sorts of topics, including our monthly book club picks. And if you join us at the Honey Boba level, you also gain access to our monthly bonus podcast Boba Chats, as well as the opportunity to help us pick a quarterly book club pick. As always, thanks to everyone who has supported us on Patreon so far, and we'd love to see more of you there.
Yeah, so we talked to Lily Chen, aka Tania Tay, about their latest rom-com novel, The Matcha Maker Cafe. It's a small town slow burn romance set in a matcha cafe in England. And we just talk about matcha. We talk about tea, obviously. We talk about cafe culture and cafe culture disappearing. And we talk about Tania's, writing journey and her community of East Asian writers in Britain and how she became a writer with representation. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Lily Chen. And we're here with Tania Tay, the debut author of psychological thriller, The Other Woman. She's also the author of a magical middle grade series under the pen name Crystal Sung called Spellcasters. And we're here to talk about her most recent book, The Matcha Maker Cafe, which was written under the pseudonym Lily Chen. So welcome, Tania. Welcome, Lily. Glad to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So as people can probably surmise, you are from Britain. And, I have to ask you this for our icebreaker. How do you take your tea? What is your favorite tea?
I've actually started drinking matcha since I've been reading these books. I can't have a lot of caffeine. So before I started drinking matcha, I was drinking rooibos tea, but I haven't drunk like normal English tea for a couple of years. Yeah, I'm having a jasmine tea now. So.
I like a good jasmine too. My wife's not a fan of the floralness, but I grew up drinking it at dim sum, so it's kind of my go-to tea if I need just something refreshing, right?
Yeah. My daughter gave me these pearls, so you can just put a pearl in, and the bits don't get in your teeth, so it's quite nice.
That's fancy.
Game changing right there. Any one of those pearls.
Yeah, for me, I'm a caffeine fiend, so I will always go for the strongest black tea. It depends on how tired I am, and if coffee is not available, then I'll just drink my black tea straight and dark as my soul. But usually, here, because we live in the San Gabriel Valley in Los Angeles, bubble tea, boba is our thing. So lots of milk teas that are black tea based for me.
Yummy.
So yeah.
Delicious.
So we do like to start off our conversations asking our authors about how they became an author, became a writer. So can you tell us about how I guess you made the jump from liking to read to hey, maybe I can write a novel or novels?
I mean, I used to, when I was a kid, I wrote plays for my sister and our siblings. I had a neighbour who was really into drama and dance. So we were the oldest girls and we would boss the little ones around. So my mum had a typewriter. I grew up, this was the 70s and 80s in East London. And I would just practicing how to type. It was quite fun because we were left on our own a lot. My parents both worked. I didn't really have childcare that much. Occasionally an auntie from Malaysia would come over and look after me and my sister, but we were left on our own quite a lot. It was fine in those days. You just kind of, I was a latchkey kid when I was 5. So yeah, I used to spend a lot of time with books, and then found this typewriter, and I really loved just having an excuse to write on it. So I really loved reading fairy stories, and we had those ones like the red fairy tale book, the green fairy tale book. I don't know if any of you read those. And so then I would kind of practice writing little plays in the holidays and getting the siblings to act in them. So that was my first writing. But then I didn't really write fiction. I never thought I could write like proper books, because it just felt like you had to be some kind of genius. And even though I read a lot, I didn't try to write a book or even fiction apart from stories at school till probably in the late 90s. I did work in advertising for some years. So I was writing copy. But even then, I never thought, oh, I could write fiction. I did try and write screenplays, because I thought writing copy and writing screenplays would be a good transition. But I never thought I could really write, books. So it was only that when I came back from Singapore, I was in Singapore 3 years working in an advertising agency, but it was a job that I had by mistake. I sort of fell into it, really. I don't think I would have ever done advertising if I was still back in London. But at the time, it was in Singapore, I was an expat because I was British. I was born in England. And it was just like you would just meet people on this whole expat scene. And I met someone who turned out to be my boss because I went scuba diving with her friend. And so I had a career in advertising for quite a few years. And then when I wanted to get out of it, I thought about screenwriting, but screenwriting is really, really hard to get into. And there wasn't the networking opportunities they have now. So I was back in London by then, and I started a class for short stories with the author Leonie Ross. And she made us do a short story a week. So that's how I started writing fiction.
Wow, you really dabbled in all different types of writing, like playwriting, short story writing, copywriting. And, I'm of the firm belief that when it comes to writing, nothing is wasted. Every single project you take, any type of writing you learn, it will come in handy for future projects. For example, if you do with your playwriting, obviously it's going to equip you to write dialogue, write lines for characters that are economical and just as powerful. How did your background in advertising copywriting, since this was your day job, help you as a novelist, help you in fiction writing?
It's really helped and also hindered, because I think anyone who works in advertising as a copywriter is used to coming up with loads and loads of ideas. So when you get a brief, you will just sort of brainstorm tons of ideas, and then you're constantly being knocked back. So you come out with another idea, and you go quite shallow. Whereas if you want to write a novel, you need to go deep. So I have struggled, I've got to say, because actually when I came up with a short story a week with Leonie, that was probably easier because I think I did her class for a term. So it was 10 lessons. So I came up with 10 short stories. Out of those, I think 3 of them have been published. But some of them were just just the beginnings of stories, or just pretty rubbish, but they didn't go anywhere. But it didn't really matter because you were just churning out, one a week. So then when I decided I wanted to turn one of them into longer form, a novel, as I said, I did struggle because I think I've got this brain that just hops onto different subjects all the time. And I actually did give up writing for a while, and I started again when I had my second lot of children. I had a child when I was quite young, when I was 21, so I did stop writing for a long time because I was a single parent and I really struggled. Then when I had my second lot of children, again, I wanted to kind of stay at home with them and really be there for them because I couldn't for my oldest. So I wasn't really writing then either. But so when I really started writing, when I had the time to write, I just didn't know what to write. I would like get my computer out, like if I had a day off work or whatever, or finally when I started writing again, and I just couldn't think what to write. And I started again by doing The Artist's Way. So that Julia Cameron book, I think my youngest kid was 2, and she does a lot on play, and I just came up with this middle grade story really for my kids, and I made up this kind of world and mythology based on sort of slightly Chinese. I had this idea that I wanted to do a different Asian country, like the Pixies were going to be Thai and some were going to be Singaporean uncles, and I was going to take lots of different and make a little creatures based on them. And so I did write this whole book, and I went through about 6 drafts of this novel, but I don't think it's ever going to be published. It was just like my practice novel. But through that, I got involved I went to like events and met people, and I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators in the UK, which at the time was really, really brilliant. And I started volunteering for them. So I volunteered for them for over 10 years, putting on events in London, like with editors and agents. And basically, me and my friends were like, oh, we really want to talk to agents and get them to give us a one-to-one. And at the time, you could only do it at the Scooby conference in, wherever they had a conference. There was one here in the UK, but it was quite expensive at the time. So with that name of Scooby, SCBWI, sorry, we called it Scooby in the UK. We could just about ask most agents, editors and authors to come and attend our events. So it was really great for meeting people, for learning a lot, and for getting to know like loads of people in the industry, just that volunteering. Yeah, so when I finally came to write my first books, which I got a publishing deal for, they were the Spellcaster series that you mentioned earlier. Again, they were people that I knew that were setting up a diverse children's book packages called Story Mix, and I knew them through going to their retreats. And then when they were looking for an East Asian writer, they called on me to do the pitch, and that's how I got that first job. And then everything kind of happened at once. And at the same time, I got a publishing deal for my thriller under my own name because I won a competition. And and it's kind of gone from there. Everything I've done seems to have been through my writing community. The Matcha Maker Cafe is actually what publishing call a IP job. So they will come up with ideas that they think are going to sell really well, that are on trend at the moment. And everyone's seen the huge explosion of the matcha trend everywhere. So they came up with that idea, and then the editor decided to put it out to pitch, but she really wanted a East Asian writer to write it because she felt it would be more authentic to the theme being matcha. And I belong to a writers network that was set up by a children's author called Maisie Chan about 8 years ago, called the Bubble Tea Writers Network. And she basically, when she first got her publishing deal, she sort of looked around and said, where are all the East Asian writers in the UK? And she wanted to meet lots. So a couple of people, other writers, persuaded her to set up this at the time it was just a Facebook group called Bubble Tea Writers Network. And there's now over 300 UK-based writers on it, East Asian. So she only allows East Asian writers that are based in the UK into this group. and she posts opportunities and networking. And in the last few years, there's been more opportunities for East Asian writers to meet up. And a lot of us were in this network first. And now we've set up a WhatsApp group as well in London. And there's like over 100 writers in it. So people, you know, it was kind of hard to meet other East Asian writers at the time. You'd know of a few, but like there's one brilliant writer, Candy Gourlay, who's from the Philippines, who was in the society I was in. And then there was someone else who's in Hong Kong. But it was really hard to network in the way that we do now, since, you know, Maisie really started it all by setting up this bubble tea writers network. And then now there's quite a few now. There's like a BC, which is British East Asian Writers Network. There's quite a few other ones. There's film ones. There's all sorts of ones. But at the time, like 8 years ago, there really wasn't anything like it. And about 3 or 4 years ago, a few of us set up a little Lit Fest at SOAS, University of London. And my editor happened to have seen the Lit Fest, and she came to the Lit Fest. And she's a person of colour herself. She's of African heritage. And she really felt strongly that she wanted a person of colour to write this Matchmaker Cafe series, and she wanted to be an East Asian. So she wrote to our Lit Fest inbox just asking, would anyone pitch for it? And I think a few of us, I don't know who else pitched for it in our group, but somebody posted it on the WhatsApp group. So I just thought I'd pitch for it, and I was lucky enough to win the pitch. So that's how I got the job.
That's really cool. I mean, for our listeners who don't really know the difference between like IP writing and original writing, like Tania mentioned, like, you know, you pitch yourself, and a book packaging company or like a publisher, they are the ones who present the idea, and they find the writer who can match the story that they have come up with. And I'm guessing that it is a little bit of a challenge because you already have like a prompt, you have parameters set, and you have like story beats that you have to follow based on like what the publishers have given you. Like, how was that experience for you as someone who, you know, would write manuscripts of your own without those limits set on you?
Yeah, I mean, I had actually already done that with so the Spellcaster series is also IP, but I worked with a story packager for that. So they gave you a very detailed outline, and you just kind of fill it in with to me, it was all the nice stuff, all the character stuff, all the, like, for instance, with Spellcasters, the editor who came up with the idea, just the brief was a British Chinese girl, you know, makes friends with 3 other girls and they form a band. But my family are Malaysian, Chinese. And when I wrote the pitch, when I saw British Chinese, I assumed she meant mainland Chinese coming here. So I do tend to do a lot of research, even for a pitch. So I asked a friend she was American Chinese, but I was looking at the waves of immigration, because I said, well, I know about Malaysian Chinese and Hong Kong Chinese because they're the family people I know, but I don't know any mainland Chinese immigrants who came. And my friend told me that her dad had been from mainland China to New York, not the UK, but it was always academics that came at that time. So, you know, because I kind of worked backwards to how old would the grandfather who came to this country have been, and so which wave of immigration and what, do you know what I mean? I really kind of felt like I would do that authentic research, because I don't just want, like, often in the past, if a white person has written a person of colour, they don't necessarily know all these nuances and they might get it wrong, and then it's like, it's not really right. So it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I did want to ask you, because Marvin and I were both East Asian Americans, and that experience is very different from, even like generation wise, like first, second, third, fourth, they're all going to have very different diaspora experiences. But you're a second gen like Brit with Malaysian Chinese descent, like you mentioned. So I'm curious to hear like what your diaspora experience was like growing up. Like, for example, like when was the first time you realized that you were being represented in literature? You're like, wow, that's me. Like, I'm just like curious to hear like what was it like growing up, growing up being like, okay, like,
yeah. I don't think I saw any children's books with an East Asian character, but I would go back to Malaysia and Singapore in the holidays. But we only went back every 3 or 4 years. And that was when I would see, was there that little hamster thing or chipmunk that was like a Japanese cartoon? You guys look a bit younger than me. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And there really wasn't anything until I would go back to Malaysia or Singapore in the holidays, but not being able to speak the language either, because at that time everyone was speaking Mandarin in Singapore and Malaysia if they didn't speak Malay. And my parents left before they had that whole Mandarin push. So they spoke to me at home in Hokkien, which is Fukien. I don't know what you call it. Hokkien, Fukien. So I would go back to Malaysia and Singapore just in the holidays and feel like, they kind of gave us names like English dog and horrible things like that. But it was the only time that I would see like maybe characters on the TV or in like those cartoony books that were maybe East Asian, but kind of animals. But even so,
we're getting representation through cartoon animals, and that was like basically the best thing we could have early on.
It's terrible, isn't it? When I lived in Singapore for 3 years, and my oldest daughter did live with me for a year, and I was so happy to be able to go into bookshops and get her Chinese fairy tales written in English and things like that. It's a lot better now for children. Definitely, it's got better and better. But back in the 70s, you're lucky if you. I mean, you would have got basically. You're lucky if you didn't see the racist versions. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I do relate to that because the most representation I saw was similarly when I went to visit my grandparents in Taiwan, and then it was just on TV. It's like Japanese anime dubbed in Mandarin, people on TV that look like me. Because growing up in the States, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 80s, so 80s and 90s.
Right.
It didn't get much better. You had like maybe one character on the show that was Asian, and they were never the main character, and they're usually a caricature of some sort, the bad guy, right?
I know, it's so annoying.
And even our children's literature, like we had and talked about this before. There's a book called Tiki Tiki Tembo, which was the only real like Asian representation in children's literature. And it was like, back then I was like, oh, this kid is Asian like me. This is awesome. But looking back now, I was like, this book is really, really racist. Like, it's so racist.
I'm really glad I didn't see that as a child. I can't remember seeing it as a child, and maybe I just blanked it out of,
so,
I don't know.
So like, I want to bring attention to your most recent book because that is why we are mainly here.
Yeah.
Your most recent novel, The Matcha Maker Cafe. To our listeners who have not heard about it yet, can you give us a short like elevator pitch, like a short like summary about it for our listeners to know what to expect?
So it's about Sasha Lee is British, Malaysian, Chinese, and she's tried to have a career and be the good daughter and have a career in law, but it kind of all went wrong. So she spent some time travelling, going back to Malaysia, meeting her family and realising they have this psychic matchmaking thing in their family. So she comes back to the UK and she decides to set up this dream cafe, instead of trying to please her parents, which feels impossible. She sets up this cafe and she's inspired by matcha and like the Japanese matcha desserts that she saw while she was travelling. And at the same time, she does this psychic matchmaking. So she whisks up, when she whisks up the matcha, the bubbles kind of give her a vision, and she can do it for people, and she can kind of see a vision about where they might meet their partner, their true love, whatever. So that's quite fun. But then one day this guy walks into the cafe, and I guess this is a story about the matchmaker who falls in love with her matchmaking client, and then she struggles with herself whether it's ethical or not to date him, sort of thing. And
yeah, it's a small town romance with sunshine, grumpy couple, and I not to go on like a tangent, but I went to London back in 2023, so 2023, and matcha's popularity was like fairly a recent trend then. I was actually like quite surprised that there were just like a lot of posters, a lot of ads like promoting the new like trendy drink, matcha. And I was like, okay, as someone who lives in Los Angeles, matcha has been like a staple with like influencers since 2015. And it's still like very popular now. I'm curious, as someone who, you know, is an Asian diaspora, and like, what was your initial reaction to like the so-called matcha mania that was like suddenly sweeping through Britain at this time?
I guess I didn't actually know that much about it. So I did a lot of research when I got the job for the book. I knew more about bubble tea. I actually had a bubble tea cafe in my children's book because the girls go and hang out in bubble tea cafes, and my children love bubble tea as well. There's lots of those. But the matcha craze, I hadn't really been that aware of it. So I have an author friend called Mina Ikemoto Ghosh, and she was my source of info all about matcha, to be quite honest. And she told me about all the matcha cafes in Tokyo and all the different desserts that were really trendy at the moment, like when she went back to visit family. And we would have a lot of late night chats about matcha and desserts all the time. That was a really fun way of doing research. And also, you know, in London, I went round, suddenly there are so many matcha cafes. So I did go round, and a lot of them, you can't even get a seat in. They're so full because they tend to be quite small because they've just like started as a hole in the wall type thing. So half the time you can't even get a seat because they're so popular and they're queuing up outside. So I just took my phone and just took loads of photos of the menus and of the cakes and stuff like that. And I'm actually a baker myself, so I've had a lot of experimenting in baking stuff for myself. And actually I'm doing this new book, I really want to introduce more. I'm kind of stealth introducing East Asian themes and subjects into my books because they're all quite commercial. But I don't want them just to be read by East Asian people. I want to introduce all these themes to white people as well. So I thought, right, I'm going to introduce more East Asian flavours in this next book. So I've been kind of doing a lot of baking and cooking and watching a lot of YouTube cooking things.
That's so great to hear that you're a baker, because a lot of the food in your book, like I was just like, wow, it sounds really good, like matcha ube cheesecake. And I'm curious, like, do you have a favorite dessert from the book that you're like, I absolutely need to put it there?
I think probably I used to make a really, really wicked baked cheesecake. I won a cookery book when I was like 7 from a prize draw, and I've always baked ever since I was a kid. And I baked this baked cheesecake for years, and people love it. And I just thought I'll put salted caramel on top. So most of the desserts are things that I've actually made, or I've adapted them from cooking that I've done. I actually did do a course in chocolate once as well, how to make lots of different chocolate desserts and, you know, truffles and stuff like that. So I really kind of did go slightly overboard with the baking. And some of my friends are like, I can't read your book without feeling really hungry. So it's, and then I just thought for this next one, I really want to do different flavours and different cakes. So yeah, I've probably kind of gone a bit overboard on the whole cake thing. But I'm glad people generally enjoy it. So,
there's no such thing as too much cake. There's only not enough cake. I know here in LA, one of the more recent trends, I guess, quote unquote trends, I would be eating for a long time was black sesame flavored things, like black sesame flavored cakes and drinks. And I don't know if that's made over the pond yet, but that could be an
actually, you've just taken away. I wasn't going to say which the flavors I'm using, but one of them is black sesame.
Yeah.
In fact, I have been cooking a black sesame pancake for myself every day. I'm addicted to it.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
With like mochi, but mochi are quite hard to make because it gets really sticky. So I just invented a kind of making a pancake where I just put the liquid mochi as a pancake with like sesames. Then I squeeze the sesame paste on top in the kind of layer, and then I put another layer of the pancake mix, and then
sounds almost like a crepe cake in a way.
Yeah. I fry it in I kind of made them quite thick, and my mouth is watering, and I've literally been making them every day.
Yeah,
with a matcha.
That sounds great. You must send
breakfast.
me. You have to send me the recipe after we're done.
Yeah, I will do, definitely. Or you can actually make them in the air fryer. As well.
Oh yeah, air fryer. Yeah.
I think it's really great that you've made a conscious effort to like inject like Asian like diaspora themes and confectionaries into your book. Definitely did notice that as we were reading it. I was really curious because I only recently learned that this book was written on IP. And did you get any pushback when you were adding these like kind of more, I guess, culturally specific aspects into your story? Or I understand was probably part of what the editor wanted, right, when they hired you to write this book. But were there any other like stakeholders that you had to like convince that this need to be part of the book?
No, she has been great. Ella, who's my editor, has just been brilliant. So right from the start with the pitch, I had to write 2 chapters. And when I won the pitch and she told me, she said the bit that she really loved it because I already put in the Chinese Malaysianness. Because I thought there's no point me pretending, because matcha is mainly Japanese, right? And I did think when they said they wanted an East Asian writer, I was like, well, really, you want a Japanese diaspora writer? Am I cultural appropriating? Because I'm not Japanese, I'm British Malaysian. So I thought if I was going to write a character who is Japanese heritage, then I would be cultural appropriating. So I wrote her all along as a British Chinese Malaysian. And also because there's not that many British Chinese Malaysian characters, British Chinese, British born. There's lots of books that are from wonderful backgrounds like Zen Cho and people like that who I see you've had on the show who is Malaysian, and I love her work and everything, but there aren't that many second generation, do you know what I mean? So I just really want us to be represented as well. So I have made a conscious effort. In Spellcasters I did the same, and I asked the editor and she was happy for me to do it. And I put all this stuff about the grandmother passing down the psychic stuff, and she was happy for me to put all that in. I mean, most of the stuff about the characters, the culture, everything like that is originally from me. The editors would have just said, we've got a character in a cafe who's got these psychic abilities. They didn't even say it was inherited from anywhere. I just made all that up. So, there wasn't even a half Japanese pastry chef. I made that up. I made up most of the half the characters, I would say, and most of the character stuff, like, I kind of extrapolated on what they gave me. But she was really open to it all. She's been brilliant. She's not pushed back on anything, I don't think. Yeah, I hope she doesn't.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah, no, she's wonderful.
That would not have been the case a couple of years ago, I will say.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've been doing this podcast for a really long time, and even though we're not based in the UK, we've seen here that some books that have come out in the recent year would never have seen the light of day 10 years ago. So yeah, it's really glad that I'm really glad that your editors were so open to your ideas and you injecting your own personal like cultural influences in it. Speaking of that, I am curious to like know about like the fortune telling part of your book. So your protagonist Sasha Lee has the psychic ability that allows her to divinate from the bubbles that she makes while whisking matcha, and she's able to kind of like have visions of people's future loved ones, or like, you know, a scene where it's going to lead them to their one true love. And you said that you tend to research a lot, so I'm curious, like, did you research like Asian fortune telling traditions? Like, were you just like, okay, like let me come up with let me see if there's like legit fortune telling methods with matcha?
Okay. The actual using the matcha bubbles came from the editor, that she felt she didn't want to have just tea leaves, because that's tea leaf reading is quite common. She wanted something different. And so she said something to do with bubbles. And then I'm quite woo-woo myself. My auntie, I have an auntie she used to live in KL and now she's moved down to be nearer Singapore, who is a feng shui reader and a fortune teller. So when I lived in Singapore, back in the 90s, I would see my auntie every now and then, and she kind of had various different techniques of reading fortunes, and she just does it for a bit of fun. And once I travelled with her when I was 18 to Bangkok, and she took me to see these fortune tellers, like a monk who reads faces and stuff like that. And I've always been interested in that kind of stuff. So I think it was probably even before I was working on this book, I had gone down a whole rabbit hole of looking at tarot and astrology and the I Ching. There's a really great psychic mystic called Benabel Wong, and I read a lot of her books. So I think I started reading it because of spellcasters. I was coming up with stuff. Again, it was a magical theme. They inherited some magic from ancient China, and I did a lot of research into that as well.
Nothing goes to waste. It stays in the bank.
No,
yeah,
absolutely. And I just love all that sort of stuff anyway. So I guess like the visions and all that, I kind of do a lot of work with energy and like Reiki and stuff like that. So I kind of half use that kind of stuff that I do myself, and then half kind of put it into what they wanted, was the matcha bubbles, to come up with how Sasha kind of sees people's true love in the vision. But yeah, it's all quite fun.
Yeah, I mean, like in Asian culture, we have a lot of ways to tell fortunes, and I like, as someone who did not know much about like tea leaf reading, I was like, oh, I wonder if like matcha bubble reading is an actual thing in real life. I think it is possible. I think
I think it's really possible. Yeah, because when they do tea leaf reading, I think it can be, isn't it? Sometimes they float, sometimes they're like on the surface. Or
yeah, I've heard of tea leaf readings where like they have like the saucer that has like the zodiac symbols, like it have like astrological charts on the saucer, and then they pour the tea leaves onto it, and that's how they read it. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. But like the way matcha is prepared, you know, you're pounding it, you're grinding it, so there's really not much you can read from those tea leaves.
I mean, initially I looked into tea ceremonies in Japan, and again, I spoke a lot to my friend Mina about this, and she was telling me all about how they used to be for the samurai, and they're quite serious and all that, and I didn't really want to bring all that into, again, I would be appropriating their thing if I was bringing that, so I wanted to have it's quite surface level on the matcha, to be quite honest. It was more like, so that's why I have her going to like a cooking workshop in Japan, and that's how she brings that matcha back to her cafe, rather than it to be anything spiritual, serious, or do you know what I mean? I didn't want to, I felt I'm really conscious of this appropriation of people's culture, and I don't want to be accused of appropriating a Japanese thing when it's not. But when I read about the fact that originally matcha was invented
Chinese.
by the Chinese, the ancient
Yeah.
Chinese, because they whisked it up for the monks and all that kind of stuff, that actually made me feel better about doing this book in the first place. Because when I first got the thing, I still felt a bit guilty. Am I using a Japanese thing? You know, especially because you don't. I mean, white people, they already think we all look the same. We're all the same anyway. So you still want to, do you know what I mean? You want to distinguish between
The care and the consciousness that you are putting into it is way, like, it's like 100 times more than just a lot of white authors who are like, let me just write a book that's set in Asia or have an Asian character with psychic abilities and not do any research or just kind of like assume that they can make things up. And it's like, yeah, they don't have that burden of representation. They don't have, you know, like for us who are caught in between, for us in the diaspora, it's like, well, we're going to get criticized one way or the other because it's like, you're not British enough, you're not American enough, you're not Asian enough. You got this wrong. Well, it's like this where I grew up, so you're wrong. It's just a lose-lose situation. So there's a lot of pressure to, quote unquote, get things authentically correct. But that's not a pressure that non-marginalized authors have to go through. So yeah, I mean, the fact that you like actually put thought into it, I mean, it's way more effort than a lot of people put in these days.
I mean, I guess so Ella, my editor, really needs the credit for insisting on having an East Asian writer, because at the time when she pitched my book and when she briefed me in September of 25, there were 5 other books on matcha being briefed that were coming out in the UK, and we worked out they're all intellectual property IP. And she said none of them were being written by an East Asian writer. She tried to find out if any of them had East Asian themes or East Asian writers, and she said she couldn't find, you know, she thinks they're all white writers. So she kind of stuck to her guns that she wanted an East Asian writer. So I think a lot of the credit has to go to her. Thank you, Ella. So.
It's a collaborative process for sure when it comes to publishing. So your book takes place in a small town. It doesn't take place in London, and everybody is kind of, you know, in each other's businesses. Like the Matcha Maker Cafe is very much like a third place where people can hang out and, you know, do their book clubs and do their work. And I feel like a lot of these places are disappearing. And a lot of your characters, you know, they are supportive of each other's local businesses. Do you have a favorite local from your book that you were just like, I'm going to put them in one more scene because they're so fun to write. I want to see them more.
I mean, I love Molly, who's one of the book clubbers, runs the book club. And her romance was helped along by Sasha's matchmaking. So she's really keen for everyone else to have the same level of happiness and go to Sasha, and she's a real fan of Sasha's. So I really enjoy writing her. I totally put her in as well. There wasn't a book club in the original brief, but I thought there has to be a book club, and she's kind of a bit of a busybody.
If there's a cafe in your book, there has to be a bookstore nearby, and if there is a bookstore, there must be a book club. Like,
yeah,
it's a very logical way of thinking, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really enjoy, like, reading your book reminds me of, like, we used to have, like, in urban planning, it's called third places, right? Like the coffee shop or bar, like where people gather and like outside of work and home. And that's something that's been kind of dying, at least here in the States. It's been dying because like a lot of like the new coffee shops, new like boba spots, they don't have seating anymore. It's just a counter and a kiosk, and that's it. And I think it's mainly just because no one, I don't know. I'm sure devices are to blame, right? I'm sure having like social media and stuff has some form of like effect on like how we experience the world outside of home. But I think, books like yours, like, the cafe genre of like cozy storytelling it's pretty ubiquitous, right? I think it offers like a nostalgic feeling of like, hey, like I remember doing work at a cafe. I remember I used to just bring my laptop out and just like plop down and work there and like just have a coffee.
I can't believe you're not doing that anymore in the States, because we still do that here. It's like,
I feel like they are slowly clawing out spaces for us, because like they're getting rid of power outlets, they're getting rid of seats.
What?
Everything is like now like
can't
to
believe
go. So
oh my
it's
God, I
very
hope
much
that
like
doesn't
after
happen
Because we
here.
COVID,
believe
things
in
kind of
capitalism and efficiency here in the States. And
Okay.
there's some consultant out there that convinced coffee stores that if people that stay in coffee shops means they're not buying coffee, right? They're just like they buy one coffee and stay and use your energy, right? So to maximize churn and maximize profit, you need to like create it's definitely there's definitely a consultant out there who like created this.
I've actually put that in the book. I don't know if you got that far with the coffee bar owner coming in, who's her landlord, making a thing about we don't want anyone to stay around, we want them to go.
This is
I feel that's
straight for business. Like this is not
Yeah.
for lollygagging.
I feel that's really sad because as I said, I have a big community of writers in London, and we have regular brunches in the British Library, in the cafe, and we just sort of take over because everybody comes in and we probably just buy one brunch or sandwich or salad and then stay there all morning just chatting.
Yeah.
I think maybe because I only know writers, so we're all desperate to get out and chat when we're not working. So honestly, I'm so shocked that you say that about that's disappearing, because I just see lots of it here still.
That gives
and
me
also,
hope.
Yeah. Also, I just go, when my children were younger, I would go to the local cafes, because I've always been a cafe person. I love cafes. And you just end up talking to everyone in the cafe. But maybe I'm just because I'm nosy. I'm very nosy, and I will just chit chat. And sort of where I live is slightly in the suburbs of London, and I think people are, again, if they've got young children, they're desperate for adult company. So you just go to a cafe with your kid, and then you'll desperately talk to all the other adults.
Yeah. I just know these days going to a cafe and finding seating is like you don't expect to find seating unless they're like an older cafe that's like and it comes down to like another thing that your book touches on is why are you running this business, right? Are you running this business to create community, to serve the community, or are you just trying to make money, right? And I think a lot of people chasing like because right now at least in my area there's a big coffee house trend, but all the coffee houses look the same. They're all like minimalist, one kiosk, like one like espresso machine, and it's like it's you can tell they're chasing Instagram likes, right?
Oh, so they make it look nice,
Yeah.
do they? They have like one wall where people can take their pickies. I mean, this is making me really sad. And
Okay, well, I will make it a little bit happier. So, like, I'm Korean, and Koreans have a really big cafe culture. It's kind of like moved over to LA as well. A lot of Korean cafes, they're opening their American branches here, and it is very much like, hey, stay for a little while. And the thing is, like, in Korea, they have streets, they have neighborhoods that's just like cafes, like next to cafes, like it's just like a cafe block. And the thing is, you're supposed to cafe hop. They actually encourage you to do this. So their caffeinated drinks tend to be weaker because they know that like people are going to go visit all these other cafes with different aesthetics and different menus and whatnot. So I'm like, okay, I mean, if that culture kind of trickles back to the States and, to other like diaspora communities, and maybe there's hope. Maybe.
I will say there is a Korean coffee shop across the street from my house, and it's the only place around here that has seating. So,
what is it called?
Smoking Tiger.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, is it something that I have not heard of? But yeah.
I mean, now you're saying that, I'm now looking at all the coffee shops that I've been looking at. I was researching in Soho in a different light, because that is kind of what the ones in central London are like. But I just thought it was because rents are really expensive. They're all tiny holes in the wall. There's maybe room for 2 seats, but I just thought that was because it was London and they can't afford to hire a bigger premises, which is probably part of it as well. But there's lots of really innovative, different sorts of East Asian and Southeast Asian desserts. Like there's one right on next to the Curzon that is just grass jelly type desserts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd never see that. I'd never seen that before, but there's a lot of East Asian, Southeast Asians who come to London, and you just, like they opened a bakery, and friends of mine went to this new bakery and they queued for an hour just so they could get their bake. And it was the Chinese style bakes, like Hong Kong style bakes, but slightly westernized. So, and they looked amazing, but I was like, I'm never going to queue for an hour. Sorry. But people were, a lot of young East Asian people are queuing because you can see them in the queue. They're going to these pop-up noodle bars or these pop-up wonton places. And Korean is also very popular as well. And there's more and more Korean restaurants and cafes in London. But I found is that cafe culture, which really came from the continent, like as in Europe, France, Italy, because back in the 80s, there weren't that many cafes in London. We would just go to the pub, not cafes. So when I was at university in Edinburgh, and that's where I first started having that cafe lifestyle.
Yeah. Because
there were lots of cafes. I think because they were Italians that immigrated to Scotland. And so they kind of introduced the idea of cafes up there first. But yeah, and also I travelled a lot in Paris and in Italy, and I love hanging out in cafes. I just love it. So I find it's really weird that you're saying that they're disappearing.
Yeah, capitalism really is killing the romance of cafes and just third spaces in general.
Do you have pubs and bars because here pubs and bars are doing really badly at the moment because people aren't drinking as much. So there's a big chain, what's it called? Brew something, big chain pubby bar-y type thing. And there's a massive one in central London, and they're actually trying to persuade people to work from home in their bar. They're doing like these day packages, spend 15 quid, we'll give you 2 drinks and you can hang out here all day. And a lot of my writer friends went and worked there for the whole day because people aren't going there to drink anymore. So they're trying to get people to come in as a cafe. Yeah.
I can't say about the bars because I do have toddlers at home now, so I have not gone out to drink in a couple years. But I do know, like before, that breweries are a big thing around here. Breweries, beer gardens are kind of like more open spaces with beer is like what at least in Southern California, that's what we're trending towards right now.
But for the evening, is that for the evening?
Usually during the day.
Daytime.
No, there are people going in the evening, like people who are not parents, Mark. I feel like because the prices have surged, a lot of people are, either not drinking at all or they're drinking at home, and it's just, gas prices here also. We have turned into an economy podcast towards the end of this episode.
It's also a generational thing. Like the younger generation
it's a generational
not drinking
thing
as much as us degenerate millennials and Gen X.
Although, okay, so like side tangent, and I swear we will end our conversation on like a happier note. But there is this cafe, this infamous cafe in Japan, where I think it is a cafe or like one of those like small eateries, but it's a cafe where you have to finish your work
I saw that.
Pay your bill. So a lot of writers go and then they hand the wait staff like, hey, I'm supposed to write 50,000 words before I leave here. So they do like hourly checks, and they're like, you can't leave until you finish your work. And I'm like, man, that would not work here in America. They would be kicked out so fast. They're like, hey, you're taking up table space. You're not ordering enough. Leave.
Oh.
I do love that. I
Interesting.
wonder what's the punitive, like how are you just banned for life if you don't finish your work?
You can't leave. Like you
can't
literally
leave.
can't leave. They
That would-
they sometimes take things as like a safety deposit.
Like a
So
collateral?
like imagine if like your car keys or like your driver's license or your wallet just being held hostage, and you're like, okay, I guess
That is so
can't leave.
funny.
You can bring your
I
child
think I
and
need
they'll hold
that.
your child hostage until you finish your work.
Yeah.
I think I need that for my actual books because it takes me
Yeah.
ages to write them. Yeah, I think that would be good.
I feel like it's I
need
don't know
that.
about London or England, your laws there. Like that type of thing won't fly here in the States because people are way too litigious in this country. But Japan, I mean, people do love a crazy idea out there. So
Yeah, I don't know if it
It's
would
like
work
the
here.
opposite of a chill out cafe.
I
It's
think
like you're not
some-
here you're not here to hang out. You're here to work.
I
And
think some people would quite happily just move into the cafe and not leave.
I would read a
And
rom-com centering around the forced labor cafe. I think that'd be great.
it's like
Oh, that would be hilarious. Let's
it's
come
like
up with it.
enemies to lovers, enemies because like you won't let me leave because I have to finish my work, and it's like, oh, but in the end you like helped me through it, so we went through we went through trial by fire.
I think we can come up with that together. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah.
You can own the IP and I'll write it. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right. Well, as we come to the end of our conversation, Tanya, we have to ask this because we want to know what's next. So, is anything in the pipe? Are we working on anything else now that this book is out?
So I am currently literally finishing the first draft of the next book in this series, which is, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it though. It hasn't been officially announced.
It's okay.
but
You can just say you're working on a sequel. And
yeah, it's a sequel. And then I've got my own work as well, which I've been working on. But as I said, I keep getting interrupted by other work, so I haven't managed to finish that book. But it was about Malaysian vampires, but I don't really know where it's going at the moment.
Okay.
So I can't say much about that either.
You had me at Malaysian
That
Vampire.
wasn't very helpful.
Yeah.
horror is like becoming like a growing genre here in the States, especially like Asian inspired horror.
Because our monsters are really
Ooh,
messed
okay.
up. Like we got some
Yeah,
real
our
scary
monsters are scary
yeah.
as fuck.
Yeah. Too scary. It's actually easier writing it than watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have control. I think that's the main thing. You need to feel
Yeah,
in
I'm-
control of the horror, or else.
Definitely.
Well, Tanya, thank you so much for chatting with us, and congratulations
you.
on the launch of your new series. I'm looking forward to learning about book 2, and yeah, good luck on your Malaysian vampire writing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely to meet you both and chat.
And that was Lily Chen, aka Tanya Tay. Her latest novel, The Matcha Maker Cafe, is available now at bookstores everywhere, including, as always, the Books and Boba bookshop. So if you enjoyed our conversation and want to check out her book, head on over to booksandboba.com and check out our bookshop link. As always, all purchases made on our online bookstore support not only us here at Books and Boba, but also your local bookstore. So thank you to everyone who has purchased a book from us so far. I guess before we go, can you remind our listeners what we are reading for book club this month?
Yeah, so we're reading Sunshine Nails by Mai Wen, and it is, I guess, like a comedy, comedy about a Vietnamese Canadian family in Toronto who will do whatever it takes to protect their no-frills nail salon after a new high-end salon opens up. So it is yet another story about gentrification and fighting against the machine, and I think very appropriate for our summer read. So thank you to our Patreon members for selecting it.
Yeah, so if you are on our Patreon, we are reading along on Discord. So make sure to check out our book club thread to join in on the conversation. As always, I'd love to include your feedback in our discussion episodes whenever possible. So thank you to everyone who has shared their thoughts with us so far. And yeah, that'll do it for this episode of Books and Boba. Thank you once again to Tanya/Lily for joining us. And we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rui Ryu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @booksandboba, and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Hungry for spicy food and even hotter conversations? Craving community and authentic storytelling? Then join the table. This is Minor Legends, a new comedy fiction podcast supported by Potluck. Pull up every week with me, Angela Wong Carbone, and follow the stories of me and my friends as we serve up tasty tales of what it means to be Asian American at our weekly dinner hang. If you enjoy deep dishing on absurd stereotypes like tiger moms who tutor your dating game rather than grades, the insanity of your parents' immigration story, to the legend of that one good Asian cousin you can never live up to, then pull up a seat and grab a plate. Featuring dinner guests like Ronnie Chang, Brian Park, Usama Siddiqui, Celia Au, Harry Young, Supriya Ganesh, and more. It's a tasty rotation that'll leave you belly laughing and steeped in relatable and spicy conversations. Can you take the heat? Listen now for free wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Phil Yu, and you may know me from a blog called Angry Asian Man.
And I'm Jeff Yang, author, journalist, and celebrity dad.
We host a podcast called They Call Us Bruce, an unfiltered conversation about what's happening in Asian America.
Each week or so, we host a discussion about some of the most vital and interesting topics in our pop culture and our community, bringing in guests who are shaping and informing this thing called Asian America from Hollywood to DC and beyond.
We got media, entertainment, food, family, politics, representation.
The good, the bad, the WTF of it all.
So check us out wherever you get your podcasts or at theycallusbruce.com.
Peace.
Peace.